Alright, what is going on guys? It's Tazz here and welcome back to the channel. This week's episode of The Flash Season 9, Episode 5, titled Mask of the Red Death Part 2, gave us the finale to the Red Death arc and the first graphic novel of the Flash's final run. Part 1 gave us our proper introduction to Red Death, an alternate timeline version of Ryan Wilder, or Batwoman, who in an effort to eliminate crime in her version of Gotham City, lost her way and turned down a much darker path. That path included Ryan formulating her own version of the Speed Force stored within the Red Death armor to give her all the powers and abilities of her League ally, the Flash. While at first she may have had good intentions with this power, this version of Ryan became corrupted by her speed, starting a war against the Flash of her world, which ultimately led to the death of that version of Iris, who was also her close friend. Ryan eventually found herself in the main timeline of Earth Prime after a trip through the Speed Force, stranded with seemingly no way home. That is until she assembled a team of the Flash's rogues to construct a cosmic treadmill, which would need a natural speedster to power it, and that's where Barry comes into play. Ryan attempts to convince our version of Iris that she isn't the bad guy, but after throwing out a classic villain monologue, Batman quotes, and some casual lies and deception, let's just say things got a little nuts. This led to where we leave off in Part 1. Chilblain pulls an Uno reverse card on Red Death and the Rogues, helping Barry by destroying the cosmic treadmill, leaving Red Death feeling defeated and quite angry. She channels her inner supervillain camp, leading straight into Part 2. So with all of that out of the way, of course, spoiler warning for the entirety of the Red Death graphic novel, but let's break through timelines across the multiverse right into this episode breakdown. The episode picks up with Red Death's raid on the CCPD, asserting her control over Central City in an attempt to do what she could not within her own timeline. Ryan wanted to implement, as she put it, the era of the Red Death, ruling over the city with fear to end crime before it could even take place. While it may seem great in theory, the ends definitely did not justify the means. As Red Death is busy trying to enact her brand of justice on Central City, Barry and Team Flash come up with a plan of their own to rescue Chilblain, who in the most shocking turn of events, totally not being sarcastic at all, actually was still alive and being held back at Ryan's evil warehouse lair. However, the rescue operation didn't go quite as planned, with Barry playing right into Red Death's trap as she revealed another piece of the puzzle. Ryan was able to convince Gorilla Grodd to side with her against the Flash and assist with a telepathic boost. This way, Red Death could project her sentinels all across the city to further enforce her brand of justice. Just kind of confused on how Red Death would have any knowledge of not only Barry's past interactions with Grodd, but Crisis and its ramifications as well. If Red Death truly is from another timeline and not from the multiverse, there's not really a reason she should know any of this unless I'm just completely missing something here. Moving on from this encounter with Red Death, Barry and the Rogue Squad successfully bring Mark back to Star Labs, where we get a bit of a tease as to what to expect with Keone going forward. She seemingly has some sort of meta abilities, possibly residual from Frost, as we did see her give off this icy breath, which is able to wake Chilblain up after being knocked out from his capture. I'm honestly not sure if Keone will just have the same abilities as Frost, or if it's a bit deeper than that, potentially with her being in tune with nature, the elements, and life forces, but her sudden magical abilities are something that looks to be explored further in next week's episode. Still in Star Labs, we get the carry-on with Joe and his decision to leave Central City, while again, the story was placed within the graphic novel to explain why Jesse L. Martin will not be a regularly occurring character this season. We did get a nice little full circle moment here with him. He gives Barry one final classic Joe West pep talk, which convinces him to go and try and reason with Gorilla Grodd. And with this, Barry is able to get through to Grodd, showing him how he's being manipulated by Red Death, promising to help restore Gorilla City as it was taken away by Crisis, giving Grodd a choice to do the right thing in this scenario. As always, it's great to have Grodd back on The Flash, and it's honestly quite the accomplishment for a TV show to have created such an intricately designed, fully CG character. So with a little help from everyone's favorite super intelligent gorilla, Barry is able to kickstart his speed just in time for the final showdown against Red Death. This was our first all-out speedster battle in quite a while that didn't involve just chucking lightning bolts or creating Speed Force lightsabers, and I'm glad it was very much so a return to form. We had the Flash and Red Death running all throughout the streets of Central City, exchanging hits back and forth while also creating some pretty cool Speed Force constructs. Barry had his lightning shield while Red Death seemed to empower her batarangs with Speed Force energy. Definitely quite the spectacle here with some pretty solid effects to go along with it. Eventually, this all leads to the moment this entire arc has been building to, which of course is the long-awaited return of our Earth Prime version of Ryan Wilder and Batwoman, complete with her theme and superhero landing. She throws a batarang at Red Death's suit, which looks like it may have had some nanites courtesy of Ray Palmer in there, disabling her speed, allowing for a pretty dope hand-to-hand fight between these two doppelgangers. Definitely awesome to finally have this version of Batwoman properly team up with the Flash, and it's only fitting that she is the one to help put an end to the era of the Red Death. We get a nice little wrap-up and goodbye to Ryan back at Star Labs, and while unfortunately this didn't go as far as to wrap up any loose ends from the Batwoman show, I'm glad we at least were able to have this mini crossover. I thought that the little aside with Ryan inviting Iris to go to the brunch with Kara and some of the other members of Team Supergirl was a fun way to show that the heroes of Earth Prime do still hang out, even if we haven't seen a proper crossover in some time. And with that, we get a creative cape trick transition, and that is our farewell to Earth Prime Batwoman. Wrapping up the episode, there's a bittersweet goodbye party for Joe, where we also have the reveal that the timeline is still in flux as Iris is pregnant 2 months earlier than the map book predicted. What was interesting about all of this, however, was the fact that somehow Keone was able to sense it, potentially once again playing into her developing abilities. I also do have to address the Chester and Allegra stuff. They can be valuable members of Team Flash, both with their own unique skill sets. However, if they continue to be just used as a relationship subplot, I can't help but feel that they are borderline pointless. Hopefully now that they are actually quote-unquote together, this will allow for them to once again contribute to the main plot for the rest of the season, and they won't just feel like characters there to pad out episode runtime. Bringing the episode and graphic novel to a close, with Iris's pregnancy happening earlier, will this be enough of a timeline shift to turn Nora and Bart into the Tornado Twins, rather than keeping them separated in age by just a few years as they are currently? Overall, I feel like the Red Death graphic novel, while it started off fairly strong, giving a nice mix of mystery and intrigue, unfortunately fell short of sticking the landing. I really did enjoy another chance to see Javicia Leslie back in the Arrowverse, getting to try her hand at portraying an evil speedster, as well as giving us one final goodbye to her version of Batwoman. But putting aside my love for Batwoman as a show and the Ryan Wilder version of the character, I can't help but feel like the Red Death storyline just didn't work for me. There were so many questions left unanswered, which created more plot holes and continuity errors than the Savitar and Godspeed arcs put together. Was Red Death just from another timeline or another Earth in the multiverse? Why did she have to stabilize herself to the frequency of this timeline? How exactly did she get to Earth Prime through the Speed Force if she's not a natural speedster? Why does she have knowledge of Crisis? What happened to Red Death's team of rogues rogues, and most importantly, why was Earth Prime Ryan's disappearance and sudden reappearance during the final fight never fully explained? I could definitely go on, and the more I think about it, the more issues I find, but these are just some of the biggest unanswered questions I still have following this graphic novel here. And while it may be easy to just explain it all away by saying don't think too hard about it or because comics, it's unfortunate that I've come away from the arc feeling this way. I went in very excited to see this take on the Red Death character, but after it was all said and done, I feel like I was clickbaited into believing the storyline would be more impactful than it actually was. I mean, Red Death never really even deathed anyone outside of the iris of her timeline, which we never saw and was supposedly an accident anyway. Eric Wallace seems to have wasted 5 episodes of an already short 13-episode final season on a story whose main purpose could have been fully fleshed out in a single episode or possibly a 2-parter. All we needed from the storyline was to have a team-up between the Flash and Batwoman and eventually get to the point where Iris was pregnant, which could have all been done without the use of Red Death altogether. Maybe make it that Ryan was chasing some meta from Gotham City who ended up in Central City, allowing for her to team up with Barry to stop the threat as well as give fans of Batwoman one final goodbye to the character. There was also some discussion around the community that potentially Grodd was originally supposed to be the main villain controlling all the rogues, hence the title of the graphic novel officially being Rogue War. And the more you think about it, the more the elements of this arc start to line up, the more plausible the theory becomes what could have been. I do feel bad for taking a bit of a negative stance here on the arc. Like I said, I really wanted to enjoy this graphic novel. Absolutely no hate is intended towards anyone involved. I still do love this show, but the Red Death storyline just wrapped up, leaving me feeling underwhelmed and honestly somewhat confused as well. Make it make sense. Red Death herself was still probably my favorite element of these first 5 episodes, and there was potential here to be a great fresh take on the character. Sadly, Eric Wallace seems to have just missed the mark with this one, and I hope this doesn't foreshadow any more letdowns here in the final season. Things are shaping up to lead to quite the memorable conclusion with the introduction of Cobalt Blue and the return of all of our past speedster villains, and I am still excited for the remainder of Season 9, but as always, we will just have to wait and see how this all plays out. Just a little heads up, there will be a 1-week break after next week in between episodes 6 and 7, however it does seem like the next handful of episodes will be the start of our interludes for the season. So with that said, did you enjoy the Red Death arc, or did the plot holes outweigh the positives for you? Was the long-awaited Flash and Batwoman team-up worth the wait? And do you have faith that the rest of the season will lead to the satisfying conclusion that the Flash deserves? I want to know your thoughts on all of this down there in the comments below. But until next time, guys, it's been Tazz, and I'll see you guys in the next video.